So Ryze, they're changing the R behavior, where now you won't randomly get teleported in or out of the ultimate. So it's gonna be like more consistent. Simply, if you're in the circle, you're gonna get teleported. If you're not, you won't. The like Ryze ult is very like weird, and sometimes you get teleported when you shouldn't, or vice versa. So this probably should have happened a long time ago. It was like some anti-noob mechanic. Dusk and Dawn, Gwen and Kayle. So Dusk and Dawn really reminds me of Fated Ashes. Fated Ashes is the jungle component that you buy for junglers that builds into Lianchi. If you guys remember, there was like a time where Fated Ashes was very overpowered on every jungler, and people were people were asking for it to be nerfed. Riot came out and said, no, Fated Ashes is not OP, we're gonna nerf the champions instead. And then a couple of patches later, they nerfed the champions first, and a couple of patches later, they also nerfed the item. I feel like Dusk and Dawn is the same fucking bullshit. I think this item is honestly just bad for the game overall. If you just zoom out, it changes like patterns of combat on so many champs, especially Echo is like the most obvious one. I think it's simply just unhealthy. I simply don't see why this item in this version is good for the game. If it somehow like doesn't just insta-proc Echo passive, then I can see it being more acceptable, but I don't know, just weird. So, Manaman Kassadin here, blah blah blah. Kassadin is looking like win rate really high, people are doing the Manaman build, then you press W, you get like 2k mana back, and you never go in a fight, you're perma-ulting, and then it has like really strong power spec and stuff. Yeah, people are slowly catching up on it, with Season 16 changes, with like home guards being buffed, you can like base early game, like a lot of like weak early game champs like Veigar, Ace, or Kassadin got like buffed indirectly with a new season, Kayle as well, so... yeah, Riot has to nerf. I think Mana Moon should not really be the best item, in my opinion, on champs like Kassadin. So I kind of hope like Riot would do something about it. Rengar, they're talking about like... He's not playing anymore. So Rengar had apparently a bunch of bugs where... Rengar had a bunch of bugs at the start of the season. And... after fixing those bugs, his win rate and statistically speaking, he's doing way too well now, so they have to nerf him. We're trying a niche for Hex Optics when it's positioned as a greedy third item, full damage item for crit users when they don't need LDR. Jinx and Twitch are receiving their ability nerfs in mid-game to keep some of their damage fantasies intact, but create sharper trades off if they miss position. Aphelios is still one of the strongest ADCs, even after a hotfix nerf in 16.1, a generic nerf here to bring power level down. Samir's BT build is significantly worse for VAR, especially after changes to crit. Xayah has been out of meta for a while. We're trying to ease her reliance on Essence Reaver procs in order to open up a bit more build variety. Okay. Senna, her Enchanter builds have been better compared to AD builds. We're trying to make that balance a little bit more AD skewed. We like the Enchanter build being viable, but AD should be the stronger one. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here. So it's a lot of like generic +1, -1% win rate. So we have first Annie, which I am never a fan of this champion being buffed. Why is the... oh. I'm never a fan of this champion being buffed simply because this champion reminds me too much of Malphite in High Elo, where you face against Annie, there's no gameplay, you're bored out of your mind, there's no skill in the game. Q base damage up by 20, equal down by 2. Not also a big fan of how Riot is approaching these buffs. They're trying to buff any support here a little bit with the E, right? But this also buffs any mid, and I think E is like kinda her most unskilled spell. And now obviously Q and W are also kind of point and click, right? So it's not like there is a lot of skill here and a lot of counterplay when it comes to Annie, but E is just very annoying because you walk up and you do like auto for auto, but then she presses E and it's just like double win for her, and there's just like no gameplay here. So I think she's weak. I think she will not be strong even with these buffs. It's not enough, but yeah. Brand is gonna get another buff. Riot already buffed Brand jungle a while ago, twice on passive.
I hope to see you compete somewhere.
Win rate
or competitive.
Win rate wise, Brand jungle is actually doing quite fine. So I think the reason why Riot is buffing it here is they're giving it a very small buff just to like kind of remind people that Brand jungle exists. This is not a buff where Brand really needs the buff. This is more like a reminder type of buff, and yeah, this is a very placebo buff. Camille. So E2 will now grant attacks between launching off the wall. It no longer requires hitting an enemy champion. Not really a buff that Camille players are going to be excited about in top lane. However, this is a jungle Camille buff, right? Because you use your E and then you always get the attacks for monsters. So maybe Camille jungle here gets, you know, it's probably not good enough to be played, I would assume, but it's going to be a big buff for clear and stuff. Darius will get passive monster mod back to 2.5. It used to be 3 when Darius was very OP. Riot has like the numbers here, how much win rate that's going to be on Darius. I think Freak said it's going to be roughly 50% win rate champion in jungle. So it's going to be back to being kind of viable, and then a very small buff to top lane Darius. Fizz will get another buff in jungle. Now, when Riot did the jungle changes and they brought in Ornn and Malphite and Cho'Gath and Jace and all that stuff, when all of those changes came in, Fizz turned out to be the worst jungler out of all those champions, so no surprise he's getting buffed a couple of patches later here. Still not a big fan of Fizz jungle, just like Naafiri type of toxicity for me, but it's not enough probably to make Fizz jungle viable. I think Fizz, it's gonna be very hard to make Fizz a jungler, I think, with the kit and everything, and it's just not really designed to be a jungler. Graves, E armor per stack up by 3, and then E MR per stack also up. Yeah, buffing Graves' durability to try to also push him more into HP builds, so then he has armor and MR from E and he can stack HP with like cleaver and stuff, and yeah, we'll see how much it gives you. Now here's the buff that I'm sure everybody is so fucking excited for, right? Kappa. Hwei will get 60W shield, which is a spell max last, and W effectiveness on allies will be up by 10%, so your allies will benefit a little bit more from the shield. And then the real buff here, the most important one, R cooldown will go down by 20 rank 1 and 15 rank 2. So, the only buff here that really matters is the R buff. The W buffs are completely irrelevant. They're usually never going to make any difference. Obviously they're trying to buff Hwei support here a little bit, but Hwei's mid is his best role. Yeah, the R buff is actually decent in a way, because this is a spell that you can use in lane to just cast it and chunk somebody, and then it's gonna come up faster. This matters because think of how something like Orianna plays her trade patterns. She can just R you to poke you, right? And Hwei will now have a lot more room to do that in a lot more matchups. It is a spell that he can use off cooldown. It's, you know, I'll take it. I think the champ will still suck. I think the problem is like his wave clear just got gutted with QE nerf, and it just doesn't have enough damage. This RCD is just not going to be enough to make the champ better. I'll play him like one game probably before I give up on him again. Passive damage on Illaoi will go up by 20. This actually matters a lot more than people might think. The number looks maybe small, but Illaoi, the way she trades and plays as a champion, she basically uses tentacles everywhere. It's literally her whole kit. So this is a lot of damage if you hit, especially like longer fights and stuff. And like, let's say you E someone and you slap him like 4 times. It's a lot of damage. It's mostly late game damage, but it also might change a wave clear breakpoint for her Q, right? Lux, base mana will go down by 40, but the base mana regen will go up by 2. This means that depending on how long you stay in lane, this actually makes Lux have more mana than before, especially if you are support, because with support item you get base mana regen amplification and support items, so this is a bigger buff to support Lux. The Q cooldown will go down by 1 and the W cooldown will go down by 2. So the Q cooldown is nerfed once you max out the spell at rank 13 for mid lane Lux. For support Lux, you might opt into maxing into W. So for support Lux, it's a bigger buff. The W cooldown just buff for mid lane and support. To me, this kind of looks like obviously bigger buffs for Lux support, who I think is one of the most popular champions in the game in her primary role. And she's negative win rate, which makes sense. But this also seems, I would assume this will also be power positive for mid lane Lux. So also slight win rate gain for mid lane Lux. Less than 1%, I would say. Maokai will get some Q monster damage up for people to remind that he can still jungle. Cool. Samira will get Q lifesteal effectiveness and R lifesteal effectiveness up. which will push Samira into BT first even more. They already tried to do that like 2 times by now. I think BT first is not correct on Samira. Is it going to be correct after these buffs? Not sure, but it might be a good second. Teemo got heavily nerfed. Teemo jungle long time ago. Riot is bringing it back. I'm not sure what the monster mod used to be on this spell, but I think it was a little bit higher than 1.6. Udyr will get Q on hit base damage up by 10 and W base shield up by 25. So Freak talked about how Q max Udyr is worse than R max in every case, and how people max W second even though E second is better. And the reason why they're buffing W is to make people who max W second basically not suffer as much, because apparently maxing E second is correct. So yeah, it's just like a buff in a way to help the noob Udyr players. Xayah, Q cost down by 15, W cooldown down by 2. Also, this like W cooldown is pretty big in like Zara Khan lanes, and then E cost down by 10. I don't really play Xayah a lot, but I would assume that mana buffs are kind of nice, right? Because then you can spell more spells, and with her weak early game, and she's very reliant on getting to one item. She scales really well, but her early game is like kind of meh. This will help a nudge into the right direction, right? Ambessa will get reverted. Q monster mod damage will go back to 125. So this was monster mod damage before. The faker clear where you go 230 Ambessa clear will not be possible anymore. Now it's probably going to be like 235, 236 or something like that if you really maximize everything. But Ambessa will still be a very viable jungler. This is not enough to kill Ambessa jungle. It's not even close. Ambessa jungle right now has like one of the fastest clears in the game if you do it correctly. Aphelios will get another nerf, this time nerfing his AD. This might make it so you not max Q first and you actually go maybe E into W. It might change his skill order a little bit. I personally don't think this champion needs a nerf, so I'm kind of like surprised I'm seeing another nerf here. Braum, R damage down by 50 and 150 late game. Not really important because you don't use Braum R for damage. R cooldown, on the other hand, up by 10, 15 and 20, that's gonna matter, right? Because I mean the champ does have haste in the build, right? So it was quite a low cooldown ultimate if you think about it later in the game. It will matter. Maybe like a 1% win rate nerf to Braum. Gwen. So Gwen is statistically insanely overpowered. I called this months ago. When Riot reverted Gwen back to her old version, which we're playing right now, I literally said that the numbers are way too insane, and she was OP before that rework anyway. This was very obvious. Gwen is insanely OP. Yeah, the big nerf here is not even the Q, it's actually the R. The R is losing crazy amounts of damage. I think it's okay to nerf it like that. Personally, I would rather nerf the R slow. I think Gwen R is slowing way too much. That's kind of my feeling when I play against Gwen. There's already her W is already low counter playability. Not sure why then she has another low counter playability, which is R. But yeah, there's gonna be more than 1% win rate loss, I would say. Jinx will get the generic 0.5 armor growth nerf, which will be around 1% win rate lost to Jinx. She will now be around 51% win rate instead of 52% win rate. She will no longer be one of the best ADCs in the game, but she will still be a strong ADC. And yeah, with this 0.5 armor growth nerfs that Riot is doing over months and months, these are all indirect buffs to all AD champions, especially assassin champions, and we're slowly reverting the durability patch. Kassadin, big winner of the patch with the Manamon build. And even if you don't go Manamon build, I'm pretty sure the champ is still really strong regardless. We'll get 6 health down, which I think is around 1% win rate, and then some E slowdown for the utility. It is a spell he maxes first, so yeah. Will be squishier, late game nerf. Okay, cool. Probably still a bit too strong, we'll see. Kayle will get a nerf that I didn't think would ever happen. At least not in this way. They're nerfing 40 damage off her Q. Which is insane. 40 damage off her Q. I think this is very insane. Now, it's not a spell that you like spam as much as some other spells, right? Like it's not this 40 damage on Syndra Q. It's not nearly the same, right? But wow. So this is gonna do a couple of things. It's not really going to change Kayle being Kayle in free matchups. It's just going to make Kayle's harder matchups a lot harder to play, right? On top of that, it's a wave clear nerf, so your wave clear breakpoint on level 7 is going to be completely different, because I think she has like a wave clear breakpoint when you Q once and then you auto once and minions die. So yeah, this will matter a lot. And simultaneously, I think this might be enough where E max first might be superior, or even W max first. I do think that this might be enough to completely change up her max order. Now, Kayle was, this nerf was long time coming, right? This champion has been one of the best win rates in the game on 2 roles for like more than a year now, even like the whole season 15 at this point. And this was long time coming. I do have to admit that I thought they would go for Moonspit nerfs. Like her passive giving 10% mass is probably too high. Should probably revert it back to 8% and stuff like that. I thought they would like hit the Moonspit because she's just zooming like crazy, but not what Riot is planning to do. Kennen will get RCD up. Freak talked about how Kennen is statistically very hiddenly OP and how he wants big ultimates to be longer cooldowns, which is why he went for Braum ult to be longer cooldown and Kennen ult to be longer cooldown. Kennen does not really build haste in the build, right? Because the build is rushing Gunblade and then like Shadow Flame, I think, and shit like that, and Zonia, so not a lot of haste in the build, so this will matter a lot, right? Naafiri will get a mid-lane focus nerf, HP regen down, so harder to lane, Q cost down, and E cost up. I mean, Q cost up, E cost up.
Can you give me 2 to 4 mids to main to climb map and Imo?
Yeah, mainly mid-lane nerfs to Naafiri, because jungle Naafiri is healthy, HP regen doesn't matter, jungle Naafiri doesn't need mana, she has infinite mana, so mostly mid-lane Naafiri, which I think, I like these changes because it makes like Naafiri, it forces Naafiri to also fight you, right? Not just endlessly spam Q for no mana cost in lane and last hit all the minions and one-shot waves and poke you. Qiyana will get 6 HP nerf, which I believe is like 1% win rate based on how Riot uses this lever, so yeah, late game nerf, mostly scaling nerf in jungle and mid Qiyana, gonna hit both roles the same, because like XP between jungle and mid is roughly the same these days. Rengar will lose Q damage and Q2 damage if it's empowered. Okay, cool. Just last burst for Rengar. Rengar's been indirectly also buffed a lot by changes like Jinx losing 0.5 armor growth and a lot of other champions. You have to also think about that. Rumble. So Rumble's been like the best top laner in professional play, but Riot doesn't care about that. They're actually apparently nerfing Rumble because of solo queue. Rumble is actually finally positive win rate after years of not being positive win rate in solo queue now. He's losing 15 HP and our base damage is getting... Our base damage per second is also getting nerfed. I thought they were going to nerf the R cooldown because people are just R'ing in pro play for waves, but doesn't seem like to be the case. Not much here to say. It's going to be like maybe 1% win rate loss to Rumble, whatever. It's still going to be played in pro. Swain is getting hit pretty hard this patch. Also one of the highest win rates champions on multiple... Actually, not multiple, it's mostly AD and mid-lane. W slow will go down by 20%. Now you could opt into maxing E second, but I don't think you will. I think 50% slow is still pretty strong. Like 70% is obviously really strong, but 50% is still a really strong number anyway. Not the end of the day, not the end of the deal. Our DPS AP ratio, our 2 AP ratios are going down. Also not the worst because Swain is not a champ that builds a lot of AP, right? So it's not like insanely the end of the world. Now the R2 decaying slow, I think this one might actually be kind of the biggest, because a good Swain players use R2 to set up his E and W, right, in fights. And now 50% is still not that bad of a number of a slow, right? And with phasers also being nerfed, let's say, and a lot of champs don't build Swifties and stuff like that, tenacity, 50% will still be enough in a lot of cases to basically land your shit. So I think this is not the end of the world for Swain. I think I would be surprised if they don't have to nerf him again. Syndra is getting nerfed. You might be like, why is Syndra getting nerfed? Syndra is getting nerfed because last patch she gained a lot of win rate, even though she was not buffed. And I knew this, and this is why I had her in plan to play in LEC in some spots, in some chuffs. Syndra got slightly less than 1% win rate indirectly because phase rush users all got nerfed and she was not affected. She gained indirect buffed in a way. W base damage is going down by 20, which is fucking crazy, and R base damage is going down by 10. So let me explain these changes. So the reason why they're going for changes like base damage is because they're trying to, again, nerf haze builds on Syndra. They're still the best. Magic Wind builds are not the best, right? However, I still don't think this is enough, and without like major number reshape and kit reshape, I think we're still gonna see haze builds being the best on Syndra. I don't think this is going to be enough. Now, on the other hand, what I really don't like about these changes personally is that W as a spell got so gutted over the years. Like Syndra W compared to a year or two ago, man, this spell is so fucking trash now. Like it is not hard, like it's easy to hit it if you're good at Syndra, but the spell does like, it's like very bad number for the spell, like 70 to 190, like these are terrible base damages. And then the R base damage per sphere, she's also losing a lot of burst, right? Because remember, her ult is minimum 3 spheres, so it's minimum 30 damage and maximum 50, 60 damage, right? Base damage. So mostly the early game, the level 6 all-in and the level 11 ult is really affected here by the base damage. And then late game, when you have a lot of AP, it's going to be like less noticeable. But yeah, nerf to Syndra. Minus 1% win it at least. Goodbye. Back to being shit. Twitch, HP growth is down. Also, I forgot to mention, Mercs also got nerfed, right? Tier 3 Mercs, so that was a Syndra indirect buff too. Twitch, HP growth down by 6, the classic Riot lever, where they use 6 on 3 champions this patch, and armor growth down by 0.2, so we're looking at around 1% win rate loss for Twitch. Durability, okay, fair. Zac, Q damage is being nerfed, and then the R maximum base damage is being nerfed. This is to make Zac like a little bit less stat checky, and you play against like Zac mid lane or top lane, and they just kind of like he kind of kills you with base damage with having no damage items in his kit or in his build. I kind of like when Riot does this. Like I like it when Zac is tanky and Cassandra is tanky. I don't like it when they kill people, when they do so much damage for being tanks. So I kind of like this change. We have the Ryze change, we have the Senna change here. So Senna's gonna lose some base damage on Q and W, but in return her AD ratios are gonna be stronger. So if you get Cleaver and like 70 souls or whatever the math is, then you're gonna be doing more damage than before. So if you're playing Enchanter Senna, it's a slight nerf. If you're playing AD Senna, it's a slight buff. Ultimately, it's probably not enough to tip to like make AD Senna be better than Enchanter Senna. It just looks like Enchanter Senna is probably still gonna be better. Hex Optics getting another buff. Riot is in love with this item, bro. Required range for max damage goes to 500. Duration of increased range on takedown goes to 8 seconds. This is crazy. Like, this item has gotten so many buffs. I truly think that this item is insanely underrated, insanely good on so many champions, mostly ADCs. And this item is really, really nuts, in my opinion. Now, it's probably not going to be a good rush item in most cases, unless you don't have a better one. But it's going to be a fantastic like 3rd, 4th item. The Hex Optics is like really hard to... It's like you have to make choices, right? Because a lot of champions want PD for the attack speed and moon speed and stuff, right? But then you have to buy Hex Optics. And I mean, another option is to buy Hex Optics. And yeah. Overall, guys, mid lane is getting no changes mostly in this patch. Support is getting mostly no changes in the patch. And most of the changes are around ADCs, top laners, and junglers. Like always. I guess the positive part about this patch is that there is actually like a lot of champs in buff and nerf lists. So I kind of hope that the next patch is going to be like similar size, right?